Black Maid slept on the floor with the baby. The billionaire saw it. And then, what happened? The security camera footage showed everything. At 2:47 a.m., while the rest of the mansion slept in luxury, a young black woman named Zara Roberts lay curled on the cold marble floor of the nursery, her arms stretched through the crib bars, fingers intertwined with those of a crying infant. She had been there for 3 hours, whispering lullabies her grandmother once sang, refusing to leave until the baby found peace. What Keisha didn't know was that Alexander Sterling, tech billionaire and the baby's father, was watching from his study monitor, frozen by what he was seeing. This wasn't in her job description. Hell, it wasn't even human decency. It was something deeper, something that would shatter everything he thought he knew about loyalty, love, and the invisible people who hold broken worlds together. Marcus Sterling built his empire on algorithms and cold logic. Emotions were variables to be controlled, people were resources to be managed. His penthouse office overlooked half of Chicago, his net worth measured in billions, and his heart, well, that had been locked away since his wife died giving birth to their daughter, Valencia, 18 months ago. The baby cried constantly. Nannies lasted weeks, sometimes days. The expensive sleep consultants, pediatric specialists, and even a renowned child psychologist couldn't solve what they called severe attachment disorder. Emma would only sleep in 20-minute intervals, waking up screaming, rejecting every caregiver's touch like it burned her skin. That's when Keisha walked through his door. She wasn't what the high-end placement agency typically sent. No prestigious credentials, no letters of recommendation from Manhattan elite. Just a 28-year-old woman from the South Side with kind eyes and calloused hands, who looked at his crying daughter and said quietly, "She's not broken. She's just scared." Marcus barely glanced up from his laptop during the interview. "The last 7 nannies couldn't handle her. What makes you think you're different?" Keisha's voice was steady. "Because I know what it feels like to be afraid of being left behind." The first night was hell. Emma's screams echoed through the mansion like a siren, piercing and relentless. Marcus paced his study, checking his monitors obsessively. At midnight, he watched Keisha walking the halls, bouncing Emma gently, her voice a constant stream of soft words and hummed melodies. By 2 a.m., he saw her sitting in the nursery rocking chair, tears streaming down her own face as Emma continued to wail. But she didn't give up. She didn't call for backup or hand the baby over to someone else. She just held on. At 2:47 a.m., something changed. Keisha had tried everything. Feeding, changing, swaddling, singing, walking, rocking. Nothing worked. Emma's cries had become hoarse, desperate. That's when Keisha did something no nanny manual would ever suggest. She laid down on the cold marble floor beside the crib. "Baby girl," she whispered, reaching her arm through the crib slats to hold Emma's tiny hand. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here. You don't have to be afraid anymore." And slowly, miraculously, the crying stopped. Emma's breathing steadied. Her grip on Keisha's finger tightened. And for the first time in 18 months, Marcus Sterling's daughter slept through the night. Marcus stared at the monitor screen, his throat tight with an emotion he couldn't name. This woman, this stranger, was lying on his marble floor at 3 a.m., sacrificing her own comfort for his child's peace. Not for extra money, not for recognition, simply because she saw a scared little girl who needed someone to stay. The next morning, Marcus came downstairs to find Keisha in the kitchen, dark circles under her eyes, but a soft smile on her face as she fed Emma breakfast. The baby was calm, alert, actually giggling at the funny faces Keisha made. "How long were you on the floor?" he asked quietly. Keisha looked up, surprised he knew. "Until she felt safe, about 4 hours." "The marble couldn't have been comfortable," she shrugged. "Wasn't about comfort. Was about trust." Something cracked open in Marcus's chest. He'd hired dozens of employees over the years, managed thousands more through his companies, but no one had ever spoken about trust like that, like it was something you built with sacrifice, not contracts. That night, he watched the monitors again. Same thing. Emma started crying around 11 p.m. By midnight, Keisha was on the floor, hand through the crib bars, whispering stories about princesses and dragons and grandmothers who made the best cornbread in the world. Emma slept until 7 a.m. The pattern continued for weeks. Every night, Keisha on the floor. Every morning, a rested, happy baby. Marcus found himself looking forward to coming home, something that hadn't happened since his wife died. The mansion felt less like a monument to his loneliness and more like a home. But it was the small things that really got to him. Like when he found Keisha teaching Emma how to clap, both of them dissolving into laughter when Emma accidentally smacked herself in the face. Or when he discovered her singing while doing laundry, Emma bouncing in her bouncy seat, both of them moving to the rhythm like they were in their own private concert. Or the day he came home early and heard Keisha on the phone in the kitchen. "Mama, I can't come visit this weekend. She needs me." No, it's not about the money. This baby, she's been hurt, not physically, but in her heart, you know? And she's finally starting to trust. "Yes, Mama, I know you raised me better than to get attached, but some things are bigger than job descriptions." Marcus stood frozen in the hallway, eavesdropping on a conversation that wasn't meant for him. Keisha was turning down time with her own family to be there for his daughter. The weight of that sacrifice hit him like a physical blow. At evening, after Emma was asleep, Marcus found Keisha cleaning up the playroom. "Keisha," he said, and she looked up, surprised by the use of her first name instead of Miss Roberts. "Sir, why did you take this job?" She considered the question carefully. "Honestly, I needed the money. My mama's been sick and the medical bills." She trailed off, then looked directly at him. "But that's not why I stayed." "Why did you stay?" Her voice was soft but firm. "Because that little girl in there has been waiting her whole life for someone to choose her. Not because they had to, not because they were paid to, but because she matters. And I'm not walking away from someone who needs me to stay." The words hit harder than any business presentation ever had. Marcus realized that for all his wealth and power, he'd been failing at the most basic human task, showing up. The next night changed everything. Emma had been fussy all day, cutting teeth and running a slight fever. By 10 p.m. she was inconsolable despite Keisha's best efforts. Marcus watched from his study as Keisha paced the nursery, Emma screaming in her arms, both of them clearly exhausted. He found himself walking downstairs, something he'd never done during nighttime crying fits. He knocked softly on the nursery door. Keisha turned, startled. "Mr. Sterling, is everything okay?" Emma was red-faced and wailing, but when she saw her father, she reached for him with tears streaming down her cheeks. The gesture was so simple, so trusting, that Marcus felt his carefully constructed walls crumble. He took his daughter, and she immediately buried her face in his shoulder, her cries turning to hiccups. "She's burning up," he said, feeling her forehead. "Fever broke about an hour ago," Keisha said. "She's just scared of how bad she felt. Sometimes when little ones are sick, they need extra reassurance that they're safe." Marcus looked down at Emma, her tiny hand fisted in his shirt. "What do I do?" "Just hold her. Let her know you're not going anywhere." So he did. For the first time since his wife's death, Marcus Sterling sat in the nursery rocking chair and held his daughter until she slept. Keisha settled on the floor beside them, not because Emma needed her there, but because this broken father needed to know he wasn't alone either. They didn't talk much that night, just sat in the soft lamplight, listening to Emma's peaceful breathing. But something fundamental shifted between them. The careful distance of employer and employee began to dissolve, replaced by something neither of them had names for yet. Over the following weeks, Marcus found himself joining their evening routine more often, reading bedtime stories with voices that made Emma giggle, learning the songs Keisha hummed during bath time, discovering that his daughter's favorite game was peekaboo, but only if he made ridiculous faces when he revealed himself. The night Marcus truly understood what Keisha meant to their family was the night she didn't come. Her mother had taken a turn for the worse, and Keisha had to rush to the hospital. Mrs. Patterson, the head of household, stayed with Emma while Marcus finished a crucial video conference with investors in Tokyo. The screaming started at 8 p.m. and didn't stop. Mrs. Patterson tried everything. Bottle, diaper change, rocking, singing, walking the halls. Nothing worked. Emma was inconsolable, her cries taking on a frantic, desperate quality that made Marcus's chest tight with panic. By 10 p.m., he abandoned his conference call and took over. Emma reached for him, but even in his arms, she continued crying, not the angry cry of teething or hunger, but something deeper. Grief, maybe. Loss. "She's asking for Keisha," Mrs. Patterson said gently. This is how she cried before Miss Roberts came, like she's mourning. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. His 18-month-old daughter was mourning the absence of someone who had become essential to her world, someone who slept on marble floors to make her feel safe, someone who had woven herself so thoroughly into Emma's life that her absence felt like abandonment. Marcus tried everything he'd watched Keisha do. He sat in the rocking chair, walked the halls, even laid down on the floor beside the crib with his hand through the bars. Emma cried harder, as if his attempts only reminded her of who was missing. At 2 a.m., desperate and exhausted, Marcus called Keisha. "I'm sorry," he said when she answered. "I know you're at the hospital, but Emma, she won't stop crying. She needs you." There was a pause. Then Keisha's voice, thick with her own tears. "Mama's stable for now. I can come for a few hours." "No," Marcus said quickly. "Stay with your mother. I needed to hear your voice. Can you talk to Emma?" Marcus put the phone on speaker and held it close to Emma's ear. Keisha's voice filled the nursery, soft and familiar. "Hey, sweet girl, I know you're scared. I know it feels like I'm gone forever, but I'm coming back, baby. Keisha's coming back. Your daddy's there with you and he loves you so much. Can you be brave for me? Can you show Daddy how strong you are?" Emma's cries slowed to hiccups. She pressed her ear closer to the phone, as if trying to crawl through it to reach the voice she trusted. Keisha sang then, the same lullaby she'd hummed on that first night. And slowly, carefully, Emma's breathing evened out. She didn't fully sleep, but she found peace in her father's arms, while Keisha's voice bridged the distance between them. When Marcus hung up 20 minutes later, Emma was drowsy, but calm. He looked down at his daughter, seeing clearly for the first time how profoundly Keisha had changed their lives. She hadn't just taught Emma to sleep through the night, she'd taught them both how to be a family. Keisha returned the next evening, exhausted and raw from saying goodbye to her mother, who had passed peacefully at dawn. Marcus met her at the door, Emma in his arms, both of them reaching for her simultaneously. She fell into them without a word, and they stood in the foyer holding each other. This improvised family built on midnight vigils and marble floors and a love that none of them had planned for. "I'm sorry about your mother," Marcus whispered. Keisha nodded against his shoulder. "She got to meet Emma through video calls, said she was proud of me for finding my purpose." Emma patted Keisha's face with her tiny hands, as if reassuring herself that her person was really back. "We need to talk," Marcus said gently. Later, after Emma was asleep, on her first try, curled peacefully in her crib, Marcus and Keisha sat in his study. The monitors showed the nursery, empty floor, sleeping baby, the picture of the peace they'd built together. "I can't do this without you," Marcus said simply. "Not just Emma's care, but this, being a father, being human. You've given us something I didn't even know we were missing." Keisha's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Mr. Sterling—" "Marcus," he corrected. "Please." "Marcus," she said, and his name sounded different in her voice, warmer. "I need to tell you something. I've been sleeping on floors my whole life, foster homes, shelters, friends' couches. I told myself it was temporary, that I was just surviving until something better came along." She looked toward the monitor showing Emma's peaceful sleep. "But that night, lying on your floor holding your daughter's hand, I wasn't surviving anymore. I was choosing to stay, and that changed everything." Marcus leaned forward. "Then stay, not as an employee, but as family. Marry me, Keisha, not because I'm lonely or because Emma needs you, but because I love you. Because you showed me that the most powerful force in the world isn't money or influence. It's someone willing to sleep on a cold floor just to hold a scared child's hand. Keisha was quiet for so long that Marcus began to panic. Had he misread everything? Had he confused gratitude with love? Finally, she spoke. You sure about this? I'm not like the women in your world. I don't know how to navigate charity galas or board meetings. I make my own clothes and sing too loud and say exactly what I think. Marcus smiled. Those aren't flaws, Keisha. Those are the reasons I fell in love with you. Her answering smile could have powered the city. Then yes. Yes to staying. Yes to family. Yes to building something real. They were married 6 months later in the mansion's garden, with Emma as their flower girl, scattering petals with the serious concentration of someone performing a very important job. The guest list was small. Marcus's business associates mixed with Keisha's church family, all of them witnessing the joining of two people who had found each other in the most unexpected place. The space between heartbreak and healing. But the real ceremony had happened 18 months earlier, on a marble floor at 2:47 a.m., when a young black woman chose to stay with a scared baby and a billionaire father learned that love isn't about what you can afford to give. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice. 5 years later, Marcus Sterling stood in that same nursery, now converted to a big girl room with princess curtains and a reading corner. Emma, now 6, was teaching her baby brother the peekaboo game that had once been their special thing. Keisha entered carrying their youngest, a 2-year-old with her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn chin. The monitors were long gone. They didn't need cameras to know their children were safe. They had something better. They had a family built on trust, sacrifice, and the revolutionary idea that love isn't measured by what you have, but by what you're willing to give up. Remember when you used to sleep on this floor? Emma asked her mother, settling beside her brother. Keisha smiled, settling into the chair where she'd once spent so many sleepless nights. Every night for months. Why? Emma's question was innocent, curious. Because sometimes when someone you love is scared, you meet them where they are, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's hard. You stay until they feel safe. Marcus appeared in the doorway, watching his wife explain love to their children in the same patient voice she'd once used to calm a crying infant. Some things never changed. Keisha still saw fear and chose to stay. Still sang lullabies that could heal broken hearts. Still slept wherever her children needed her most. The difference was, now she had someone sleeping beside her, sharing the vigils, taking turns on the floor when love required sacrifice. "Daddy," Emma called, spotting him. "Come sit with us." And Marcus Sterling, who once believed that success was measured in stock prices and quarterly reports, joined his family on the floor where love was born, understanding finally that the most powerful empire he'd ever built wasn't made of money or technology. It was made of moments like this, of choosing to stay, of sleeping on marble floors until the people you love feel safe enough to rest. If you felt touched by Keisha's quiet strength and the power of choosing to stay when love requires sacrifice, give this video a like and tell us where you're watching from. You might be surprised who else near you is learning that true love isn't about comfort. It's about commitment, even when the floor is cold and the night is long. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary love stories don't begin with grand gestures or perfect circumstances. They begin with someone willing to sleep on the floor, hold a stranger's pain, and stay when staying is the hardest thing to do. Sometimes, love is lying on cold marble at 2:47 a.m., whispering to a scared child that she's not alone. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, someone sees that love and chooses to build a life worthy of it. The security cameras captured it all. But what they couldn't record was the moment 3 broken hearts became whole, or the way love grew in the space between midnight and morning, one whispered lullaby at a time. That's a love story worth sleeping on the floor for. What would you have done in Keisha's position? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us that the most powerful force in the world is someone who chooses to stay when staying matters most.